Welcome back, folks. We're discussing the NG-CDF, the NG-AAF, and of course the Senate Oversight Fund, and whether or not we need them and whether they should be redeployed, and so many things. But before we went on break, there's a gentleman here by the name of Mulamba who was about to give us his fiery comments on this. Let's hear from Mulamba, let's hear from Jerry, and then we go around the room as well. Please.
Well, the NG-CDF came to solve a problem that had bedeviled this country for a long time, and that is the situation was that the country was developed unequitably. There was a development disparity in almost every other part of the country. Secondly, there was a bureaucracy on the flow of funds from the national government to the grassroots level. And then the MPs also felt too pressured by the communities to always fundraise and hold a base for community projects. In the post-independence Kenya, most of the community projects were fundraised for. The fund is talked about, the grant for the districts, existed merely on paper. Most of the funds did not reach the community level. So the MPs felt pressured to have a CDF that will bring monies closer to the people. It was the first ambassador of devolution. It is the John the Baptist of the devolution that we have today. So as we sit here, we are discussing a fund that was entrenched into law in 2003 before the 2010 Constitution was promulgated and brought the new breath of the devolution. So today, there has been several high court orders that have claimed, I don't know if claimed is the word, claimed that the CDF is unconstitutional.
Are you implying that this idea is outdated?
As it is now, this idea is outdated.
Mm-hmm. Why?
Because we have the devolution now that can do everything the CDF is doing. Mm-hmm. The problem is we did not, as it is now, we did not devolve all functions to the county government. President Ruto and the former opposition leader, Raila Odinga, have alluded to this in the past, and it is the truth. We did not devolve all functions to the county governments. To today, we are still discussing functions that are supposed to be carried out by county governments that are still domiciled at state departments and ministries of the national government. Why? Because they have not funded devolution enough. Mm-hmm. The devolution we have today is funded to a tune of around 330 billion, or is it 370? They have increased that to around 410 billion. Is that enough? Counties are getting, is it 15%? Or 35% of the funds that we raise as a country. Is that enough? The national government has for a long time held on to the lion's share of the revenue we raise in this country. That is a situation that is untenable. As we move forward, we need to fund devolution more, probably to a tune of 50%. What is it that the national government is doing that the county governments cannot do? They have proven that they can work, save for the corruption cases that we have, that are still prevalent in the national government itself. So we need to devolve more functions and more funds to the county government, because the idea of devolution that started with CDF is a revolutionary idea, and we need to follow it through. I cannot imagine a Kenya where all the funds remained with the national government, and that we would have to beg and plead with the president for development projects across Kenya, because that is exactly the same thing our MPs are doing. And
Mulamba,
it is,
Mulamba,
by
yes
the way,
yes or no, for purposes of this discussion. So you're saying save the NG-CDF, but take it to the counties. Is that what you're saying?
Pardon?
For the sake of this conversation, are you saying save the NG-CDF, but take it to the counties?
Yes, save the money and take it to the counties. We cannot afford to have money get back to the national government. Right. That will be a loss to the Kenyan people.
All right, fair enough. Jerry, have you benefited at any one point, where we say that critically there are these cases, because members of parliament have been making a lot of noise on basis of that go to the constituencies, go to the counties and get the testimonies of the people on ground as to how much they have benefited from this particular kit.
Thank you so much, and I also want to say thank you for inviting us to this debate as young people, because eventually some of these changes that are happening in this nation, we as the young people will either be the biggest beneficiaries or the most disadvantaged people about it. When we talk, when you ask me about am I a direct beneficiary of NG-CDF, I come from a constituency in Nyandarua County that is called Ndaragwa constituency, a constituency that until today we are still struggling with electricity. We have homes that have to go kilometers and kilometers to just go charge their phones. I'm in a constituency where we are still talking about unpiped water. I'm in a constituency whereby we are still talking about we having to really struggle in terms of roads development. But every year, when the budget is read, when the allocations are made, I hear the office of the MP is allocated around 170 million if I check the last financial year. And if I accumulate for the last years, this regime, the previous regime, the money that has been flowing in and out for the longest time, since the NG-CDF came in, we are talking about close to 2 billion. But when I look the reality in the ground, I cannot see 2 billion. Maybe I can see some hundreds of millions, but I cannot see 2 billion. So what am I trying to say? When we talk of NG-CDF being scrapped off, we have a very thin line in terms of it has done what it should do, and it has been misused. Because if I was a resident in Murang'a County today, where Didi Nyoro happens to be the member of parliament, I would tell you it should not be scrapped off. But again, when I remember where I come from, my neighbors or people around me have to go for kilometers in search of an electricity, something that every other day we hear last mile connectivity. Where I come from, and sometimes I hear people talk about bursary allocation being more politically a political activity than a need activity. When I talk of a political activity than a need activity, I mean when bursary allocations are being done by politicians, chances are that if you don't sing the song of the politician involved, you will not be part of it, because the fund is very small, and despite it being allocated in the NG-CDF Act to be a certain percentage, many are the times that we see, you know, a well-done doom tent, music, DJ and MC in an NG-CDF bursary allocation event. And those people are not there for free. They are paid. So when we do the cost of the bursary being allocated that day that is being given out, and the cost of the whole event, we still wonder, should that money have gone more into bursaries, or should we have paid a national MC, you know, a celebrity to come MC? So when we talk about this fund, as somebody who comes from Mashinani and who stays with Wanjiko every other day, and a young person who is not selfish enough to say that simply because I want to one day be in parliament, I would say that normally somebody would expect me to say that it should remain. But because I've seen the reality of this fund is quite individual in terms of which MP do you people have. I have seen people who have seen development for 5 years, then the next member of parliament takes them a notch higher or a level lower. It depends with who is in that seat. So in terms of, for the sake of a constituency that will not have a member of parliament who is accountable, for the sake of those constituencies that are majority, because when we talk of Dindi Nyoro and some few other members of parliament, the likes of Kinababu Owino, who are doing so well in terms of when we check with the controller of budget, they are not the majority. The majority are constituencies that we cannot tell.
Doesn't that then justify the need to have these monies devolved then, of course, taken to the counties? Because if you're going to talk about Dindi Nyoro, we are also alive to the allegations that were there. I mean, though not substantiated, of course, just yet, but yeah.
That is why I'm saying, if you ask me, I would say it's time that we be alive to our constitution. Okay. Our constitution does not when we look at NG-CDF in according to the constitution, it's quite unconstitutional. So I still stand with what my colleague said, that we should take it to the devolved government, because we cannot have a member of parliament initiate a project, choose the members of CDF, again or supervise himself in that same project, and again bring us the evidence of what he did and upload in his own website. So we cannot have the same person who is deciding, the one oversighting himself. You cannot be the whole thing in that kitchen. So I think if at all we want to discuss NG-CDF, we have to look at why is the Constitution, why is the High Court, why is the Supreme Court talking about it being unconstitutional? Which is the exact question that we are asking. Because if you tell me that we will create another oversight over the MPs in NG-CDF, you are going to tell us about an increased wage bill. Because when we talk of governors, we have senators who oversight them when they allocated funds. But who oversights the MPs? Who is national government that oversights the MPs? We really don't have. It's them oversighting themselves. So for a long time, we've been having national government members who have no choice but to sing the song of the president, or else the president and the executive can decide to politically oversight you and bring you on TVs with a lot of scandals.
Politically oversight you. Yeah. Mulamba, quick one before we come to Mr. Osido.
So the reason why this fund should be scrapped is part of what she's alluded to. And that's why I was, and taken to counties.
Okay.
Because
we have to be very clear on that. It is either it is being removed from the kitty of the members of parliament to the counties, or scrapped in totality, you know. Well,
say repurposed to the counties. Because the current CDF that we have still enables the partisanship politics that were there before 2003. Because members of parliament today may decide to underdevelop or not to develop some parts of their constituencies in totality, if, for example, they feel that they did not garner enough number of votes from those areas. And that this has happened in my own constituency, Kitui West. We've seen this happen. The MP decides to fund projects from the side that she comes from, the ward that she comes from, and neglects the other wards. So why would we want to have a CDF that is still as discriminatory as the national government is, and as the situation was in 2003 before the CDF came into action? So we need to rein in on the CDF, and we need to ensure that we have those funds taken to, say, the Ministry of Education on the part of bursaries, and the rest taken to counties, so that the Kenyan people win. We cannot have a situation where the MPs decide which areas are we going to develop and which areas are we not going to develop.
I hope you are alive to the public participation process that is bound to happen in relation to entrenching or salvaging the monies. You have a question for Osido, right?
Yes, two, in fact. Let's go to something everyone appears to touch on, that on one hand, these funds are very effective. On the other, they can be weaponized, like they're saying. But I'm interested in one particular perspective. From a governance aspect, why do these funds keep failing audits? What are the key things that actually cause, outside of the politically motivated failures, what are some of the issues that keep tripping up these funds and the management?
Of course, there are a number of issues, but to the core of these issues is a lack of effective accountability, to the sense that, for instance, the citizens that are supposed to be the beneficiaries of these funds a lot of times do not have opportunities to oversight or even to be part and parcel of the ongoings. So that, for instance, given how NG-CDF works, through the NG-CDF board at the national level, the officers are seconded to all the 290 constituencies, and then we have a committee, then the SCDF Constituency Development Fund Committee at the constituency level. But if you look at the manner in which, one, the election of these committee members is done, is not up to par with the expectations of the citizens. Politically speaking, you expect that, therefore, those who are close to the Member of Parliament, National Assembly, or the MP, should be the ones who inherit these seats in terms of election. Yet, it is not supposed to be like that. In fact, in some constituencies, Members of Parliament even prescribe in a list who are supposed to be elected to be members of those committees. And that is an institution that has been put in place by the NG-CDF Act. Number two, of course, is a clear engagement between the audit offices, the audit office of the Auditor General, Office of the Controller of Budget, and even strong citizen accountability institutions or citizen agency accountabilities at the constituency level. We don't see a very close engagement between the audit offices in terms of capacity building, even for the committee members and or the different sector committees or sector groups of different citizen groups within the constituency. Now, failure to build the capacity is the reason as to why in some of the reports, if you look at some of the Auditor General's report, and I think some of my colleagues have alluded to why some constituencies are doing better and some are doing worse and some are probably not even have nothing to show, is because the Auditor General is looking for evidence. And so you go into a committee or a constituency, and in a committee, there are no evidence of minutes of a CDF committee. You know, there is no clear-cut engagement between what the CDF manager is supposed to do and the roles and responsibilities of the CDF committee chair. Now, moving this even further is it is worsened by the existence of what we call constituency managers. So these are people who generally are like PAs to the MPs, who are also members. In fact, they are not supposed to be members of these committees. But in some of the meetings that we have observed and I have attended, you actually have somebody seated there representing the member of parliament. As Njeri says, some MPs even call themselves patrons. Yet the act does not acknowledge. In fact, if you read that act, there is nowhere the member of parliament, National Assembly, is mentioned. But they still call themselves patrons. So these gaps, and if you look at the architecture of this fund, is that the common citizen will not have a business to want to know hii shule imejengwa na governor ama na MP ama na MC ama na nani. The bottom line is that services are being delivered. But if you look at the framing of the constitution and other supportive legislations, is that these programs and projects are supposed to be implemented to the spirit and to the letter of both the constitution and the book to what the law is saying. But the citizen is not interested in all that. Now, what we must do, which I also think is another gap, is failure to prosecute members of parliament who are, suspected or who have actually been known or who have been found to misuse CDF funds. Of course, this is overstretching it because they are not mentioned anywhere. They don't even sign checks. But there's a mechanism in which the government, if it is interested, through DCI and all these, mechanisms that we have, can be able to underscore, evidence around interference of funds which are going to the citizens to be able to exercise certain responsibilities. And one of those ways of looking at this is, for example, at the launch of these projects, at the issuance of bursary funds, must the MPs be present? Must they be present? Must the election be done at the CDF hall that has been built by the MP as they normally tell us? The answer, in my view, is no. Now, I am saying all these things because these are V2 ground and they're the things that are happening. But if you look at the general framing of CDF, fact of the matter is that CDF has done immense development in this country. There are people who are today, qualified and they are professionals just because CDF paid their bursaries. We have areas and corners in this country that were it not for CDF, they would never have had schools. Initially, before 2012 amendment, rather 2016 amendment, CDF even used to build hospitals until when they amended it of course, with the incoming of devolution and health being devolved, and now is moved fully to to county governments. But there are areas in this country where, were it not for CDF, they would never have seen dispensaries. There are areas in this country, as Njeri is saying, they are suffering from lack of water, but there are areas in this country that would never have seen flowing water in their taps, were it not for CDF. Now, what must we do? As I said earlier on, there is no mechanism to devolve CDF to counties. And as this is a matter that is going on, the courts have spoken. As Linda is saying, we have a public participation, that is upcoming. I know and I am sure that CDF will be given a green light. The members of parliament will do a Gachagua thing to CDF.
But wait a minute. It appears the public is well aware of what's going on.
Let's hear about this Gachagua thing.
And I want him to tell us that as you also respond to this.
Yes.
Well,
Gachagua
the members of parliament, don't you think that at this level where we are all woke and are aware of what's going on, you hear how the youth are debating on this matter, that they are concocting their own poisons, that one that is going to kill them and finish them eventually?
What the citizens must
Through
do
the public,
is,
yes, participation
what
process.
the citizens must do with the public participation is to speak out their minds. If you know CDF is effective, exercise your right. If it is ineffective, exercise your right.
Yeah.
And part of why I'm saying they are going to play a Gachagua on the citizens is look at how the public participation sessions for the impeachment of the deputy president were conducted.
Okay.
Within 6 minutes, as many as of the opinion say aye,
Aye.
and even if they say the nay, they just say the ayes have it. Now, that is something that we must guard. And how to guard it is, for instance, these very informative sessions like what you are now, we are having here today. And so ahead of the public participation, citizens must really be taken through the High Court ruling, the Supreme Court interpretation. Now, unfortunately, and we have also had some very high-level politicians, including the Speaker of the National Assembly, saying that CDF is here to stay. What does that mean? Of course, in the light of separation of powers, again, as we are talking about that, we have had people like Mheshimiwa Raila Amolo Odinga talking about the role of MPs. Of course, I know that he knows that MPs, National Assembly, are not involved in CDF, but he chose a very interesting example for roads. And part of why that is interesting is because it is some of the members of parliament who even prescribe the tenders, the contractors who are supposed to be given these tenders through these particular people that we are calling fund managers, constituency managers rather. Hence the reason as to why citizens are of the opinion that this is the money that MPs are actually using to siphon back to be able to do whatever they want to do. But if you look at the framing of the Constitution, even for roads, we have clear-cut classification of roads, which are supposed to be done by national government and those that are supposed to be done by county governments, which is partly why the Council of Governors are also getting involved in this process. Okay. Because for roads that are supposed to be done by county governments, they are denied 10 billion from roads maintenance fuel levy, and then this money is being given to members of parliament, quote unquote, through CDF to go and do those, those particular construction or to construct those roads. Whereas if you look at proposals that are coming up, for example, that if we have Kenha and we have Kura, why can't we have a mechanism that brings together all these government, institutions, whether at the devolved function, together with those that are at the national government in that particular county, sitting together and agreeing that this road has already been budgeted for by the county government. What is it that you want to do? How much have you put for this particular road as a county and for how long? So that we say, if the MP is also interested in that road, because you have to be interested, especially for the sake of infrastructural development and just general service delivery. Then we say, let the governors and the MPs sit together with the institutions that exist and agree on how that is supposed to be done. But that cannot be done because there is politics in CDF. So the MP is of the opinion that in the next election, I want to be the governor. So when we get to the people to campaign and we agree on, ratios of resources that we put in a specific road, when we go to campaign, who will say that they built that road? The MP wants to inherit the road. MCS are now asking for what development fund, which again, I don't see it, seeing light of day.
Senators?
When we get to that level, they will be saying, we are the ones who built this road. Senators are also asking for Senate Oversight Fund, which anyway, I am in agreement with, because for them to be able to exercise full
we want
service delivery for devolution, that money prescribedly, as is prescribed in the NADCO report, is purely to facilitate the Senate committees and senators to go and exercise counties. So that, for example...
But hang on a second. Hang on. I want us to discuss that particular fund, the one, the Senate Oversight Fund, a little bit later. Give it its own space to breathe so we can attack it from different angles. I saw several reactions to what you were saying all around you. Let's get some quick remarks. We want to take a short break. Want to take a short break and handle some sports just a little bit and then come back to the discussion. But can I just get quick rejoinders with you, Mr. Simba, for the next 1 minute. 1 minute, please. And then we'll come to the rest of you a bit later.
Thank you so much. I think one thing that we should not miss out is that development is not the problem. The purposive interpretation of the Constitution, Article 295, provides for a purposive interpretation of the Constitution, that a Constitution should be given meaning to the letter and the spirit. And the Constitution has actually spelled out the functions of the three arms of government: the legislature, the judiciary, and the executive. The problem with the NG-CDF is the involvement of the members of parliament in the running of the funds, because the implementation of projects is a reserve of the executive. Having said that, it's also important now to go down to the understanding of the electorates on NG-CDF. Almost all the panelists have alluded to members of parliament performing well. No one has actually mentioned any CDF committee or chairperson of any constituency. So it's very clear that the war is the weaponization of the NG-CDF Act by the members of parliament for their own political reasons. So what needs to be done, number one, is to disintegrate or to remove the members of parliament from the running of the CDF.
Right.
The launching of projects by members of parliament, that is not their mandate. There is a body that should be created, which is basically, I think I'll proceed with this after the break. Just
Thank you very much.
The point.
Thank you. You're a good man. You keep time. You'll go to heaven. Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a bit of a breather. Lots of big things have been said by our panelists. Let's take a moment to digest that. We'll come back with a bit of sports, and then we jump right back into the conversation. And before we leave you this night, we will talk about what Kevin was talking about, which is the Senate Oversight Fund. We will also touch on the National Government Affirmative Action Fund, which I know Njeri is a big, big fan of. Right? We'll be right back after these messages.